And we are live on Facebook. My name is Josh Hasten. This is another edition of Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, June the 8th, 2020, the 16th of Sivan, 5780. This is the first time that we are doing not only a Zoom interview, but we're also going live on Facebook as well. So this is, I guess, for me at least, a little bit of an experiment. Hope it goes well. Hope we are broadcasting to the world on the Land of Israel Network on Facebook. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're safe in your part of the world, especially with all the craziness going on, whether it's the COVID-19 or the pandemic or the riots, which we saw this past week in the U.S. But we have other news in addition here in Israel. Specifically, I'm talking about the potential Israeli application of sovereignty to different communities in Judea and Samaria. Prime Minister Netanyahu has a July 1st deadline in which he's indicated he will use that date in order to begin that process. So joining us on the line right now is a good friend of mine, coming to you from, I believe he's in Mitzpe Yericho, where he lives, Rabbi Uri Pilichowski, if I'm pronouncing that last name. It's not an easy name, Rabbi. He's an educator. And did I get it right?
Yes, you're perfect. Just like it's spelled.
Just like it's spelled. Rabbi Uri Pilichowski, also an Ole from, I believe, New Jersey. Yeah, originally from New Jersey, lives in Mitzpe, does a lot of amazing work with students and young people, whether it's pro-Israel advocacy, whether it's Torah. I saw, the Rabbi, you had a column in the weekly Torah Tidbits this past week of the OU Center. So Rabbi Pilichowski's all over the place, spreading the truth to the masses. So thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to talk about a media alert which you released this past week, along with a lot of other of our friends from the communities of Judea and Samaria. I'm talking about specifically the Trump sovereignty plan, or in their words, they call it annexation. I don't like that term. I say application of sovereignty because, in my opinion, you can't annex something that's already yours. With that being said, we're talking about this July 1st deadline. Now, there was some controversy and still remains controversy here. A lot of different sides voicing their opinions within the community of Judea and Samaria as to how this should be done. You had one vocal opponent of the Trump plan, specifically. I'm not going to get too much into criticizing him. I think enough's been said on that, but kind of attacking the president and saying that this was a bad plan for Israel, that the president's not acting like a friend. But your group of leaders, high esteemed individuals who I respect greatly, came out with a statement, and you were really a driving force behind it. And I'm just going to read part of the statement. It did get picked up in various media outlets. It says the following by the group of activists: Israel has never had as good of a friend in the White House as President Trump, and his friendship in diplomatic circles, security, and legal issues is unprecedented. President Trump has withdrawn from the Iran deal, moved the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan. Then your statement continues: President Trump's vision for peace recognizes the undeniable truth that Israel has legitimate and rightful claims to Judea and Samaria. While we share concerns over the details of the plan and how it will affect our day-to-day lives, we are cautiously optimistic about the application of sovereignty. We look forward to seeing the plan and will express our thoughts in a constructive way at that time. So that, in a nutshell, summarizes your group. Those who have signed this letter are essentially saying that, number one, Trump is in fact a friend of the state of Israel, and number two, there might be some reservations in terms of some of the specifics rather, but you definitely agree that Israel at this time should annex the 30% of Judea and Samaria at this time. Go ahead and comment on that, if you will. That was a mouthful I just gave you.
Okay, so first of all, you keep mentioning a July 1st deadline. So I'll make sure it's clear. There is no July 1st deadline. That's a artificial date that Bibi Netanyahu chose in the coalition agreement with Benny Gantz. That by July 1st or on July 1st, they can start the process of extending sovereignty.
Correct.
That's not from the Americans. That's just a completely artificial date that has no significance whatsoever. And I doubt we'll see. I would put it probably, let's use the number 30% chance of an extension of sovereignty on that day. As I think that day, you'll start to see discussions in the Knesset about it. among the security cabinet. I don't think you're going to wake up on July 1st and then see a scheduled announcement by Prime Minister Netanyahu that he's decided to extend sovereignty and that's it. So I don't think we should wake up, looking at July 1st as this momentous day in history that's anything's really gonna happen. And who knows how long it will take? It could take months. It could take years potentially. We have no idea how long this will take. In terms of President Trump as a friend, so I think that whether or not you're a fan of the plan, whether you're a fan of the details of the plan, I think it's undeniable that there has yet to be a president all presidents have been supportive of Israel. And in their own way, right? Every single president, from Truman all the way through, every president has been supportive. President Obama, who we like to demonize so much, is the one that funded Iron Dome when President Bush wouldn't do it. No president had supported as much cooperation, and still, even with the last UN vote, it has the greatest record of supporting Israel in the UN of any U.S. president. So all presidents have been supportive. But it's unprecedented, the level of support and the method of support that President Trump has given. So whether or not you like President Trump, you don't like President Trump, just statistically, it's impossible when you just draw a chart to say that President Trump has not been the most supportive president of the state of Israel of all American presidents to this point. I hope the next one's even more supportive.
So in regard to the letter, you expressed, as you did just now, your support of the president. And so you believe that we should go full force based on the parameters as they are. And again, we don't know exactly what final maps will be used. And you stated in the you mentioned here in the statement that there are some concerns, but nevertheless, you think that Israel should go full force and endorse the plan as we know it today. And what we're talking about is, again, 30% of sovereignty, the major communities, the communities, I guess, if you will, closer to pre-1967 Israel. We're talking about Ariel and Malay Adumim and Gush Etzion and all of those areas. Without reservation, without thinking twice, Israel should apply sovereignty, and then perhaps you can clarify, if you can, wait and see what happens in the next phases. You think we need to take advantage of the situation as it is now?
Yeah, I think a tremendous opportunity is being presented to us. Again, I think that we shouldn't go in blind. I think that we should wait until all the maps are done. They're not finished yet. And the details have not been ironed out. Not all of them have been ironed out. But unless there's some glaring, security threat, not a potential of a security threat, but some glaring security threat, how can we give up the opportunity that we've been fighting for 53 years, right? And even longer, maybe even you could say 73 years, if not 2,000 years, to extend sovereignty. It's what Zionism is all about, is settling Jewish people on the Jewish land and self-determination on our own land. So given the opportunity here to pass it up because of some fear that it's fear of ourselves. We're worried that we might do something. We're not worried about the Americans. We're not really worried about the Palestinians. We're worried about some Israeli prime minister down the line pulling an Ariel Sharon and doing something unilaterally. But if we're only fearing ourselves, then we only have ourselves to fear, and we should get over that.
So the internal debate going on, and there are a lot of voices. I'm talking about specifically within the communities of Judea and Samaria, some of the leadership and the residents as well. And I consider everyone here to be my friend, whichever side you take in this debate. And I've personally gone back and forth, and I've learned about what all the sides are saying and all the different opinions. And I'll just quote you from today's Jerusalem Post. And again, these are good friends of mine, Nadia Matar, Yudit Katzover. Their opinion in an op-ed in today's paper, they say the following. They say, they're talking about the plan, this framework is nothing more than a compromise on the basis of which the territory will be partitioned. God forbid, with Israeli law applying to only 30% of Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, while the remaining 70% designated for the establishment of a Palestinian state. So they are concerned that once you apply sovereignty to the 30%, you're essentially saying that we are forsaking the 70%. And what would your response be to that opinion from Yudit, Nadia, and many, many others who are extremely concerned that essentially you're giving up on the other 70?
I think it's important to note that we wouldn't be having this discussion if it wasn't for Nadia and Yudit, who for years were the ones pushing sovereignty, and everybody looked at them and said, that's a pipe dream, it'll never happen. So I think it's important to note before I disagree with them that we all owe this entire situation that we've come to to them, and specifically to those two individuals, to those two leaders of our movement. So that's the first thing to note. The second thing is, I think that if we take this same argument and just switch out the application of sovereignty and switch out the year 2020, and instead fill in the establishment of a state of Israel, the declaration of a state of Israel, in 1948, then we'll be having exactly the same discussion. And God forbid had we back then said, well, we're not getting 100% of the land, so we shouldn't take the 72% of the land or 55% of the land that the United Nations was offering us, then we would never have had a state of Israel. If we always hold out for perfect, we'll pass up on good. And I think that's a big mistake. And to say that we're never going to have this opportunity again. There's not going to be a president out there that's going to offer their support for us. And we're never going to be able to apply sovereignty on our own unfortunately, without American support. I think until Mashiach comes. So I think here's our one chance. I would say to them, listen, yeah, 100% you're right. We should be applying sovereignty to the entire Judea and Samaria. There's no doubt. Everybody agrees to that. But we don't have the necessary support that we're dependent on to do that. So why pass up on something and make sure that we make enough statements when we take this step to say we're not giving up on the 70%. We still consider the 70% our land, but we're just taking the opportunity to take the 30%, and then at a later stage, hopefully, we'll get the 70% as well. I think that's a fair statement to make.
And speaking of the 30 and 70, and you know this from an internal discussion that was taking place amongst some of the leaders within Yesha on WhatsApp. I'm not going to reveal, I don't have the authority to reveal who made these comments. I haven't asked his permission. But according to one very educated source on the matter, he said that in regard to the 70 versus the 30, he said that there are no, based on what he knows of the plan, there are no Israeli commitments on the 70% as a result of applying Israeli law. And there are no, in his words, there are no Palestinian rights in the 70% other than what they have now. In other words, what he is saying is that there will be no change of status to that 70%, and that Israel has not given up on the 70%, and essentially nothing will change the day after Israel decides to apply sovereignty over that 30%. Do you subscribe to that thought? I guess it's maybe reassuring if you understand what he is saying here, basically saying that we're not saying 70% will be gone. It'll kind of be either put aside, or Israel will not be able to build for X amount of time in those areas, but in no way, shape, or form are we saying that Israel's making any commitments in terms of handing over that 70%. That's one analysis on what we're really talking about from an insider who says that he has studied the plan meticulously and does not see anything in there that shows that, in fact, Israel will have to accept any sort of compromises on that 70%. What would you say?
I think that you just have to read. I mean, he's not saying anything novel. He's not saying anything with great analysis. If you just read the plan, that's what it says. So if you, what all we're committing to is the agreement that within the next 4 years, if the Palestinians come to the table, we will negotiate what happens with that 70%. That's the only commitment we're making. We're not committing that if the Palestinians come to the table, we will give them the 70%. We are committing to negotiate over the 70%. And I think this goes back to what I was saying before. What Nadia and Yudit and other people are worried about is a prime minister that feels the obligation to then give up on the 70% in that negotiation, and then or does something unilaterally which says, listen, we got the 30%, let's give up the 70%. But nobody that has read the plan would ever be able to say that we are making a commitment to give the 70% up. That's not true. And anybody that reads the plan and sees the conditions and understands the history between the Israelis and the Palestinians in this conflict knows for a fact that there's no way the Palestinians can turn around within 4 years and meet all these conditions. It's too high of a bar set for them. So the chances of them even coming to the table are so minute that not to take this opportunity and this tiny, tiny risk of them coming to the table, and then an Israeli prime minister acting unilaterally to combine risk upon risk upon risk upon risk, and then give up the opportunity is foolish in my eyes.
I'll be honest with you, as somebody who's actually read the plan, it still confusing to me each and every day with new information that comes in. It's confusing to me that the maps that were presented back at the White House in January, I mean, I thought those were the maps, but apparently those aren't the maps, and that there are different reports about Israel turning in other maps and the U.S. not responding yet. There's a whole question of what the map will actually look like. And to me, even reading the plan and studying the plan, it does not seem like it is black and white, number one. And number two is you never know when either an Israeli government official is going to offer input which could change the agreement, or somebody from the American side could add or take away parts of the agreement. So it doesn't seem to me that everything is etched in stone at this point in any way, shape, or form.
So I think you have to separate between two things, and I think this is the heart of the issue and the concern that you're finding from within the Judea and Samarian community. There's two things. There's the map, and then there's the plan. The plan is the plan, and that can only be made better than what's in the written word now. The only reason it can be made better is because the only people negotiating the plan right now are the Israelis and the Americans. The Americans are not going to change their plan to make it worse for us. There would be no purpose for them doing that right now, and because the Palestinians aren't negotiating. So there's no one pushing the Americans to change their plan to make it worse, and there's no reason why any Israeli negotiator would be now changing the plan to make it worse. So the plan can only get better as it's written, what you have in front of you. There's no new information when it comes to the plan, right? So anything you see in the media is completely fabricated because the plan has not been changed. So there's absolutely there's no new information, there's just new rumors. So disregard all rumors because they're not based in fact. When it comes to the map was purposely done as a concept. I think it was a mistake to release a conceptual map because it got everybody scared. The map isn't done. The map is being negotiated between the Israelis and the Americans. And when a map finally is released, then we can have an educated opinion. To start saying that I'm worried about what the map is going to look like before the map is published is boogeyman type talk. What are you worried about? And then lastly, right, so we separated the plan, we separated the map. Now lastly, to the point of maybe an Israeli prime minister or an American president is going to come along and make changes, that can happen anyway, right? That's a fear. Plan, no plan, extending sovereignty, not extending sovereignty. That's, as Ariel Sharon demonstrated to us, that's always a risk. So there's no reason to give up 30% because that will somehow hasten, excuse the pun here, that will somehow hasten a Israeli prime minister acting unilaterally or an American president acting unilaterally in support of the Palestinians against us. It doesn't make any sense. It can happen anyway. So that fear, right, again, it's boogeyman fear. We're only fearing ourselves. So if we're only fearing ourselves, let's get over fear of ourselves and ensure that any fear that we have of ourselves doesn't come to fruition.
Well, it'll certainly be an interesting time over the next several weeks, months, and who knows how long this is going to be until we see this plan either bear fruit or perhaps be brushed aside like all the other plans until now. But I want to finish by commenting on what I see behind I think it's your right shoulder from where I'm standing at here. Yeah, living the dream. I'm going to put you on the spot here. I've heard you speak to others, and if I'm not mistaken, you know exactly how many days since you made Aliyah. The sign behind you says "Living the Dream" over there in beautiful Mitzpe Yericho, which, if you're not familiar, it's east of Jerusalem, and you pass it as you head down to the Dead Sea. It's there up on the hill on your left side. Number one, how many days have you been living in Israel? Number two, talk about living the dream before we let you go today.
So today's the 2,147th day. And it's very simple. After high school, I came to Israel and I stayed for 8 years, and circumstances had it that I felt I could best teach Torah in America. And went to America and was there for 10 years on a literal 10-year plan. I had an idea of what I wanted to do in Israel and realized that I wouldn't be able to do it unless I spent 10 years in America first. And had no idea for sure that I'd be able to come back after 10 years, but was hoping that the plan would work. And by God's miracles or grace, it worked. But throughout those 10 years of living in America, my heart ached to come back to Israel, to the point where I would tell everybody that, we're only here temporarily. And every night at dinner, literally when I say every night, at dinner, we would talk to our children about how this isn't home. Home is in Israel, and we're going to go back there. And most of our actions that we did in America, whether it was making sure all of our children were in one bedroom so that they didn't get too comfortable in America, or if they got back to Israel, it turns out our house that we bought here was actually bigger than any house that we had in America. So it worked out even better than we had imagined. But everything was centered around coming back to Israel. So it was really a dream. It was a dream. Hayinu kechomen, as David Melch said. So that's what we were. We were dreamers. So when we finally got back to Israel after 10 years, I just said, when we landed, now we're living the dream. This is the dream. So, and then I realized every single day that I live the dream, I should be appreciative to Kadosh Baruch Hu, to God, for being able to live this dream. This is not a dream that my ancestors were able to accomplish, and the ability to live the dream is something that I feel we should be aware of on a daily basis. The good things that we have in our life. So whatever struggles and pains we have in our life, at the end of the day, I can look out my window at the beautiful view, as you mentioned. It's the view that Moshe Rabbeinu had in the opposite. As Moshe Rabbeinu was looking at Mitzpe Yericho when he was standing and begging God, Yeschan, to come in, and God said no. We didn't get that no. I got the yes. So to think of myself as having merited something that Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't merit, that's a dream, and I'm appreciative every single day. So I count it.
It's a great story. It's inspiring. And I've been pushing Aliyah a lot on our show over the last several weeks because of the situation. And I always tell people that I hope you don't move here as a result of having to run away from anything. I hope what you did is make a plan. And that's something I encourage everyone to do. You had a 10-year plan. I had a 5-year plan. And thank God I got here in 4.5 years. But the key to all of this, for those who are thinking about Aliyah, is make a plan. That is so key in order to get things accomplished and do what you need to do before you come over here. Make that plan, try to stick to it as much as possible, and please God, you'll be living the dream like Rabbi Uri. But I want to thank you so much for your time. We are out of time today. Rabbi Uri Pilichowski, educator, rabbi, of course. Just how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your work and everything you do for the people of Israel here in the land of Israel?
It's a good question. I would say Facebook's probably the easiest. I'm the only Uri Pilichowski in the world right now, so it's pretty easy to find me. And just contact me on Facebook. I'm very accessible, happy to help anybody.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time, and thank you for your views. And we are going to have a great day. We're going to take a short break right now. Thanks, Ben Bresky, for setting us up. If you're watching us on Facebook, hope you're enjoying this part of the show, and we're going to take a break and record part 2, not on Facebook, but it will be available on the Land of Israel Network, on SoundCloud, my Facebook page, and on and on. My name is Josh Hasten. This is Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, I have to always check the date, the 8th, 2020, the 16th of Sivan. Short break and back with all the news from Israel. Don't go anywhere.
The Land of Israel Network is your connection to Israel and the Jewish world. Listen to our show hosts, Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel, Eve Harrow, Josh Hasten, Shlomo Katz, Mike Foyer, Yishai Fleischer, and more. Keeping you up to date on news, politics, and spirituality. That's the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Broadcasting the truth and beauty of Israel to the world.
And we are back. Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Monday, the 8th of June, 2020, the 16th of Sivan, 5780, coming to you from beautiful Gush Etzion, Israel. Thanks again to Rabbi Uri Pilichowski for that interview. And if you missed any of it, you can go. It's already up on Facebook. And, of course, you can see it here on the Land of Israel Network. I'm going to get to some news here. It's getting heated, by the way. Just want to let you know all the different opinions. I mean, not. I wouldn't say it was nasty, but it's definitely getting heated. All the different opinions, whether Israel should go forward with the Trump plan, whether we should reject the Trump plan. I'm talking specifically about the residents of Judea and Samaria. By the way, I have a little bit of a cold here today, so I apologize if my voice is a little bit off, but I want to get to the news here. Reported by Israel National News, Arutz Sheva, Israeli security forces captured an Arab terrorist responsible for murdering an IDF soldier in the Shomron last month. Military censors have cleared for publication the arrest, which took place several weeks ago, of Nizmi Abu Bakr, 48-year-old Arab living under the Palestinian Authority from Yabad in northern Samaria. He's the one who dropped a cement cinder block on 21-year-old IDF soldier Amit Ben Yigal, Hashem Yakom Damo, from the roof of his building during an arrest on May the 12th. So that suspect is in police custody. And, I would give him, honestly, the death penalty. That's my opinion. I would deport his family from this country. I would do whatever is necessary to prevent the next murder of an Israeli. But at least minimally, he is under police custody. At the same time, an Arab terrorist pleaded guilty to the rape and murder of Israeli teenager Uri Ansbacher, Hashem Yikam Dama, in a February 2019 attack. The terrorist will be sentenced by the Jerusalem District Court in a later date. I don't think I should say their names. I said the name of the other one, but that was a mistake. I shouldn't say the names of these monsters. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, rape, and unlawful killing with a terror motivation in the murder of Ansbacher from Tekoa, who was just walking in a Jerusalem forest, a Jew walking in Jerusalem who was murdered by this monster. Ansbacher, again, was doing her national service in the Ein Yael region, the Ein Yael woodland there near the Biblical Zoo, when she encountered the terrorist. And just a horrible, horrible story, and what a horrible loss that was. And again, I would recommend that this terrorist receive the death penalty for his actions. Times of Israel reports that 12 people were killed overnight on Saturday in drone airstrikes targeting pro-Iranian militia in eastern Syria. Syrian reports say that the sites had been refortified and restocked 3 days earlier. Munitions and vehicles were destroyed in the strike. Those killed were Iraqi members of pro-Iranian militia and Afghan members as well. The airstrikes came after Israel targeted a weapons facility in northern Syria on Thursday night. Again, the first strike I referenced, nobody has taken claim for it just yet. But the one in northern Syria on Thursday night killed 9 people, caused massive damage, according to reports from Syria. Again, it is Israel, whether they acknowledge the strike or didn't. And in this case here, Israel targeting those who seek to harm the Jewish state, whether we're talking about Iranian proxies in Syria, whether it's perhaps Hezbollah, whether it's these other forces with allegiance to Iran. Israel is certainly not playing games with these people. Getting to the corona situation here in Israel, reported by Israel National News, Arutz Sheva, Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday opened the weekly cabinet meeting by addressing the sharp rise in diagnosed coronavirus infections in the past week and a half. Listen, we knew this was going to happen, okay? When they open the schools, when they open the businesses, that's really, the culture here. When things go back to normal, they go back to normal. I know that there are people, I was actually on the beach on Friday, and I'll get to that soon, but people were really keeping their social distancing. I saw it for myself. People were staying away from each other. They were really, really doing a good job of that. That being said, there's still people who don't wear masks. There's still people who don't social distance. And, of course, sending the kids to school, it was to be expected. But hopefully, please God, the numbers of seriously ill patients remains very, very low. But the numbers of infections have gone up here in Israel. Hopefully, we will get that under control. The Prime Minister said that the Defense Minister, the Health Minister, and himself were going to be touring the Biological Institute to receive an update about efforts to find a vaccine for corona. The Jerusalem Post reported this morning that Israel is not experiencing a second wave of coronavirus because, according to these researchers, the first wave never ended. and the current rate of infection is not reason for alarm. This according to senior health experts. This is still the first wave, according to a Suda Ashdod Medical Center Deputy Director, Dr. Hadar Marom. He said, until recently, Israel kept people at home, which allowed us to minimize the percentage of the population that got the virus. However, when we started to mitigate the closure, we started to see that there are still people in our population who have the virus. Some of them are not sick, but they have it, and they can spread it to other people. So it's not a second wave, according to these researchers, these experts. It's still part of the first wave. And again, please God, we will keep the numbers down, keep people healthy, and have control over the situation. Yamina chairman, in other news here, and former Defense Minister Naftali Bennett was very upset on Sunday over the decision to allow a senior terrorist leader to be buried in Gaza. On Saturday, Ramadan Shala, 62-year-old, there it is, I did it again, I said his name, 62-year-old former leader of the Islamic Jihad terrorist movement, died in Syria, and he was allowed to be buried in Egypt. Bennett blasted the decision, accusing the new defense minister, Benny Gantz, along with the prime minister, of giving a free gift to terrorists. In a tweet on Sunday, Bennett compared Israel's approval of the transfer of the terrorists' remains to Gaza to the refusal of Hamas to return the remains of two IDF soldiers killed in 2014, Oron Shaul and Hadar Golden. I agree with Bennett fully on this one. Why are we allowing terrorists to be buried wherever they want, in Gaza, wherever it is, while Hamas is still holding our two boys and two Israelis, two living Israelis, as far as we know, hostage? We should not give in or show any sort of or make any sort of gestures to Hamas in Gaza, especially as they have Israelis in their hands. And so I mentioned the fact that I went to the beach on Friday. I went to Ashdod. It was the first beach day of the season, and it was absolutely spectacular. Again, I mentioned the social distancing. The water was a little bit cold, but it was nearly the perfect temperature. Beautiful summer sun, and just an amazing Friday. It's the best way to go into Shabbat, folks, is going to the beach here in Israel and just chilling out and relaxing and having a great time, going into the water and just laying out on the sand. And hopefully, I saw reports that the jellyfish are on their way in. Hopefully, it'll take some time. Usually what happens is when the weather is perfect and when the water is perfect, that's when we get the jellyfish. It usually happens around the 3 weeks before Tisha B'Av, but the reports indicate that perhaps the jellyfish, I mean, it is this crazy year, 2020. Perhaps the jellyfish are coming in sooner than expected. I hope that's not the case. Hope to get back to the beach again this week. And that's going to do it for today. My name is Josh Hasten. This is Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Thank you so much for being in touch with me during the week. Those who send emails and Facebook messages, it's Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, Joshua Hasten or Josh Hasten, Israel Advocacy and Journalism. I don't know if you can hear it, though. The birds are chirping outside my window here in Gush Etzion. Maybe you can hear it. Maybe the mic is picking it up. On Twitter at Josh Hasten and on Instagram as well. Most importantly, before we say goodbye, thanks again to Binyamin Bresky, Tabitha Epstein for all the work you guys do behind the scenes. Most importantly, between now and when we speak again, please God, next Monday, everyone out there in the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Be safe, folks. Shalom, shalom from the beautiful rolling hills of Judea, Israel. Have a great week.
You're listening to the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com, broadcasting the truth